My name is Ravi Bapna, and I'm going to be talking to you about thriving with AI. AI is a hot topic in our environment, and people tend to have extreme views about it, right? On one hand, you have sort of this dystopian view that AI is going to take away our jobs, is going to lead to a world with a lot more disinformation, or alternatively, you might be hearing from the tech companies about a utopian view where you have a self-enlightened era, sort of nirvana, self-driving cars, people sort of living in this golden age where universal basic income takes care of all our needs and AI is going to do all the work that we don't want to do. The reality is always somewhere in between. But one thing we can say about AI is that unlike prior general purpose technologies, technologies that allow us to do a wide variety of things like computing or even going back in time, electricity or the printing press or the steam engine, all of those were actually tangible. You can see a computer, you can have sort of a relationship with, you can work with it. But AI is a new general purpose technology that is much more complex and it's much more layered and fundamentally it's intangible. These algorithms that influence what books you read, perhaps, or you get recommended on Amazon, or what movies you get recommended on Netflix, or whether you get screened by a company that you've applied for by a resume screening algorithm, or whether you get a credit, from a bank or a loan from a bank. These algorithms are lurking in the background. We can't see them. We can't touch them. And therefore, they're kind of mysterious. And that kind of intangible nature of this new general purpose technology creates space for these extreme views. And that is what motivated me and my co-author Anindya Ghosh to write Thrive, a new book. The aim of this book is to demystify AI for the layperson and therefore give you agency and understanding to help shape AI for the betterment of society, right? So you can be part of this journey that eventually everybody's going to be on. And so in the process of writing this book, we bust a few myths around AI. So that's what I'm going to focus on today. Myth number one is around this hype about Gen AI. Okay. Gen AI is the shiny new object in town. In fact, a lot of people's association with AI directly, connects to something about using Chat GPT, perhaps. But one important aspect that our collective 40 years of experience has shown us is that it's not all about Gen AI. That's a myth. In fact, in the book, we develop a framework called the House of AI that has a foundation of data engineering, right? Data is the fuel that sort of powers AI, and you need to spend a lot of time and effort in curating and harvesting this data to then perhaps build a predictive model to detect whether a mammogram has cancer in it or not, right? Or to undertake this whole art and science of separating correlation and causation within a company. So on the foundation of this data engineering, we have four critical pillars: descriptive, predictive, causal, and prescriptive. And then we get to two additional layers that take us to higher order things, where we want to go beyond just looking at numeric data, but we start harnessing the power of textual data or images or audio or video. That brings us to the power of deep learning. When we want to make decisions in a dynamic environment and optimize over a long term, that brings us to the power of reinforcement learning. And generative AI itself actually is a combination of many of these other building blocks in the house of AI. By and large, first and foremost, it's a predictive model for language. And on top of the house of AI, we have essentially this layer that talks about how in deploying AI, we have to be ethical, we have to be equitable, we have to be fair in the use of AI so that it actually benefits everybody. So the book takes you sort of in a detailed tour around the house of AI. But in the short time that I have today, let me go on and bust a few more myths and misconceptions around AI that are there in society. Another Another big source of fear around AI and another misconception, perhaps again, hyped by the media, which has sort of this choice of playing kind of the fear card or the hope card, and the fear card, basically attracts more attention, attracts more eyeballs. So that's why they tend to use it a lot. So you get a lot of these stories, some of them rightly so, about how AI algorithms may be sort of exacerbating societal biases. Okay, there was the story back in the day around how Amazon's resume screening algorithm was discriminatory against women when they were applying for STEM jobs. Okay. But if you dig deep into the root cause of why those algorithms were behaving in that particular way, what you actually find is that those algorithms are reflecting societal data generation patterns. The fact that, for example, not a lot of women perhaps are taking part in STEM courses in high school that allow them to then actually get those kinds of degrees at Amazon, that allows them to then get those kinds of jobs. And those models that are being built on the data that in the early days that Amazon was using had a disproportionate number of men in tech jobs, and therefore it sort of made this association that said that being male is somehow being good in tech jobs. Okay, now what we're seeing today, right? Luckily, that algorithm was found to be discriminatory. It was called out. It was stopped. But what we are seeing today is actually more advanced AI, reinforcement learning algorithms, for example, that are both exploring and exploiting the underlying patterns in the data at the same time, actually correcting for some of those societal biases in the data generation process, and therefore, in a nutshell, a lot of AI itself is being used to correct some sort of societal biases that arise from patterns of social norms more than anything else. Okay, so AI is more likely to be the solution actually than to be the problem in this particular case. Another popular myth, especially around this shiny new object called Gen AI, is that if you look at the Twitterverse, or you look at the pundits out there, uh, the one thing that they emphasize the most about how you can benefit from Gen AI is making sure that you master prompt engineering, right? Of course, that's a really, really important skill in today's day and age to get the AI to work for you in the right possible way. But actually, that's only the starting point of getting benefit from generative AI technology. Uh, if keep in mind that if something like prompt engineering is accessible to everybody, right? If Gen AI, ChatGPT, and other tools are accessible to everybody, nobody can actually get differentiation from out of it. Right? So how do you create, a distinct competitive advantage using generative AI? Think about marrying your existing ideas, your existing resources, your existing proprietary assets, say within an organization, right? For example, the transcripts of the top 10% of your highest performing, center agents. If you take access to that and you fine tune an existing Gen AI model with those super high performers way of answering calls and doing customer service, then you can create the superpower that has your organization's brand voice, and can be a super additive component to your overall customer service function. And that takes sort of this Gen AI as a core capability, but marries it with your own proprietary assets, either through things like RAG or through fine tuning. And that's when we start seeing a lot of very, very fun use cases, right? In my world, I'm in the business of teaching analytics to executives, to MBAs, to CEOs. And what we have built, myself and a couple of other colleagues, we have built our own platform using this approach that allows, let's say, a whole class of executive MBA students to perform really sophisticated actions in the house of AI using no code agentic AI, right? And that's kind of like the new type of innovation that we are likely to see going forward. So prompt engineering is the starting point, but definitely not the ending point. Think about RAG, retrieval augmented generation, and fine tuning as the next step, right? And the final myth that I'll talk about uh, comes to me from a story that I was a part of at an alumni event a few years ago. I was talking to one of my former students from the Carlson School of Management about how their careers are progressing, how much are they enjoying their work, and this student had got a job in a very fancy company in the Twin Cities. And initially, while she said she was really happy with the job and the income that she was getting, um, after a few sort of rounds of conversation, what actually turned out to be the case was that this student was really bored inside that company, right? And this is a Fortune 50 company because all the things that we taught them in the House of AI, very small fraction of them were actually being used in the company on a day-to-day basis, right? So she was saying that, oh, all they're doing is making us run reports in Excel. And that led to this new insight where people think that the reason why companies cannot move ahead with AI, with machine learning, with analytics is because they don't have a lot of data scientists to do the work required to, let's say, do fine tuning. Actually, right, the bigger shortage is not in the supply of data scientists, but in the demand from the leaders and the executives and the managers who know the art of the possible with AI, right? There, what we find is a lot of inertia, a lot of lack of awareness. We may call it ignorance, and therefore a lack of imagination and innovation. And so, that's a bigger challenge that we have to tackle in addition to creating really, really trained data scientists. So let me end by basically saying that AI is here to stay. Every technology has its risks, which we have as a society have learned to manage over time, right? Uh, a kitchen knife can be used to do a lot of nefarious things, or it can be used to create beautiful sushi, right? So I think the mindset that we that is Anando and myself in our new book that we want to really propagate is this mindset of us as humans thinking of AI as a very powerful colleague, right? And we can think about how to architect new worlds, new solutions to grand challenges. We want to think about how we can orchestrate and conduct this new human AI symphony. And if we can do that, then we are going to make the world a better place.